for a second presentation by Skift Research, please welcome Skift Senior Research Analyst, Seth Borko.
Hello again, everyone. I have just a few minutes. I'm going to give a presentation about where Skift Research thinks the future of travel distribution is going to kind of tee up the rest of our afternoon's conversations. And we believe that travel distribution is at an inflection point. And we've been thinking a lot, I like to think about history a lot, and we've been thinking about kind of the history of modern travel is in many ways this kind of tug of war between suppliers and distributors. And it's this pendulum that swings back and forth. They're always frenemies, but sometimes, one side sort of has the upper hand. And we really believe that in this most recent cycle, suppliers kind of were gaining the upper hand or had the upper hand. They built these big brands, which had in turn consolidated. They'd really adapted to the e-commerce era, built these loyalty programs and book direct initiatives. But periods of disruption, which certainly what we're in now qualifies as a period of disruption, is typically when we see inflection points. And we think we could very easily see an inflection point back to distributor strength today. Now, I think when I tell that to a lot of people, they just assume that that means that, well, we're going to see the OTAs act like they did in 2008 all over again. And I'm not convinced that that will actually be the case. So let's dig into that a little bit deeper. What do I mean by that? Well, there's this kind of law of large numbers. Basically, the bigger you are, the harder it is to grow. And the fact is that for many OTAs, the core markets they operate in, by which I mean US and European consumers booking hotels and airlines, was becoming quite saturated. And there were some limits to that growth. We're looking at room nights here, and you can see that this is all pre-COVID, that for several years before, room nights were slowing and then actually kind of stalled out and plateaued at that 10% growth rate. Nothing to scoff at, but not what these companies were used to. And so if we're going to need to grow our way out of this crisis, how can we return to growth? I think there's three ways. It's new regions, new products, and innovation. So we're going to touch on all of those. First, we're going to hit the first two out of the three right out of the gate, which is new regions and new products. I think there's an incredible opportunity for growth in emerging regions and emerging products. We have this emergence of regional champions like Traveloka, which was mentioned earlier, who is doing a really great job taking the existing kind of online travel agency model and adapting it for their local markets and many Indonesians that want to travel. And then you have the product specialists that are doing something similar, taking the business that worked for hotels and airlines and bringing it to alternative accommodation or tourism activities or campsites. I think it's much easier said than done. It takes a lot of nuance and a lot of operational expertise to really execute on this, but it's definitely a lot of area for growth. But what about those kind of core legacy markets? What about there? And that's where I said I think we need innovation. And when I think about innovation, I like to start with a consumer and work my way backwards and kind of say, where are their pain points? Where can we innovate? And this is consumer data. This is a survey we did basically asking how many American households were incentivized to travel because of discounts on offer. And it's a resounding no. People are not really purchasing because of discounts. It says to me that we are fundamentally experiencing a health crisis far more than a financial crisis. And discounts are the solution to a financial crisis. That's what worked in 2008. But it's not going to be the solution to a health crisis. What the solution to that will be, well, other than obviously like the science, vaccines and things of that sort, I think a big part of the solution here is trust, actually, and brand building. We're hearing that travelers are taking more time shopping. They're even calling hotels to check about what things are going on. It's not just, you can't just stick a COVID warning label or add a badge to your online travel agency webpage. Consumers need to really trust and verify that just because you say you're keeping up with COVID protocols, that when push comes to shove, that the night shift manager actually is keeping up with COVID protocols. And so unfortunately, online travel agencies have kind of struggled with some of that. I think a lot of what they were really, really good at, which was really, incredible and really innovative, things like inventory building, e-commerce, price-based shopping, have in many ways become table stakes these days. And when we think about the future where we're going to need to innovate, I think it's going to be in areas like trust and verifiability, like I was mentioned. Also in things like discoverability and merchandising. This is actually kind of what I was talking about with Lindsay, that as that paradox of choice, that as you have more and more stuff on the platform, the challenge becomes maybe not building a large platform, but actually helping consumers find those hidden gems. And part and parcel of that is going to be attribute-based selling. So there's always going to be a place for price comparison, but I think increasingly too, both consumers and suppliers want the ability to merchandise based on their attributes. The airlines are definitely kind of taking the lead in this. That's what NDC is all about. But I think we will see hotels follow with attribute-based selling as well. Now, this doesn't mean that traditional OTAs are dead, by the way. They can absolutely build all of these things that's needed, and they are working on them in many, many ways. But I also think that this what's needed column presents opportunity for new forms of long tail distribution platforms. And what I mean by this are things that are kind of live in this gray area that maybe we wouldn't consider traditionally. Things like soft brand collections, which, yeah, it's gray area. Are they suppliers or are they distributors? But I think in many ways they are effectively acting as, loyalty program distribution channels for independent hotels. I also think we're going to see a rise in tech vendors and other tech intermediaries kind of working behind the scenes that allow operators, both branded and unbranded, to use personalized data, to use powerful CRM tools, to get this kind of big data insights and A/B testing capabilities that were previously only available to big brands or OTAs, and bring that to the long tail. And so when you combine those three things together, we kind of get our vision for post-pandemic travel distribution. We think that it will be truly global. I mean, in a consumer sense, in terms of a shopper, truly global for the first time ever. We think we're going to see a whole slew of new products and services brought and being sold online for the first time ever, not just hotels, airlines, and car rentals. We think there will be a focus on building trust and really owning the consumer, and that could mean things like brands and soft brands from distributors. And we think we're going to see more merchandising based specifically on supplier attributes. The OTAs and the global distribution systems are not going away at all. They're going to adapt to this and in many cases lead this. But there's also going to be a slew of new platforms and tools available as well. So that's my lead-in. I've asked to be brief, so we're just high level, but I think that's to tee you up for some of these really interesting distribution conversations to come. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.